Alright, Sean, Katie and Sean. Star Wars Celebration happened again. So continuing on from our video yesterday, we reacted to the Ahsoka trailer. But there's also been 3 new movies announced.
3
movies.
movies.
3 movies announced, feature length.
Okay.
Not connected.
Okay.
Not a
I was just
trilogy.
gonna say, like, I know you said 3, but
So there's one will be about the beginning of the Jedi, the foundation of the Jedi.
okay.
Yeah,
That's kind
cool.
of what we've
I think
always
it's something
wanted.
like 25,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, set roughly then.
It's kind of what we've always wanted from Star Wars.
2 is the Dave Filoni movie,
Of course.
and he's gonna
Something incredible, probably.
he's gonna
Groundbreaking.
end all of. He's gonna tie up all of the Mandalorian, the series, and everything. It's all gonna culminate with a film.
Okay, so when you... The Mandalorian, so is it just Mandalorian?
Mandalorian, Boba Fett, most of the other series that he's been involved in. So Clone Wars, Rebels, Ahsoka. All of them are going to tie into this last movie.
Oh, what does that mean?
But before we jump into them, the third one, Daisy Ridley is returning
No.
to show life after Rise of Skywalker. Her building up the Jedi Order.
Swear words. That's what I want to say.
Indeed. All of the swear words.
Why? It's nothing against Daisy Ridley, by the way. It's not. She's, great and everything. But I just... The sequels are just like... Ugh.
Let people end. Let people forget the sequels.
Why are they still holding on hope? There's literally a string that they're holding on to with the sequels. Just let it snap. Let it fall.
So the people that are directing, James Mangold, most famous for Logan, is doing the Dawn of the Jedi. Dave Filoni, obviously we know, and Charmin Obaid-Chinoy, who did things like Miss Marvel and Saving Face. Never seen either of them, so I don't know if that'll be any good. But it's set in a Pooh time period, so it's probably not going to be.
It's... Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about these films. So firstly, let's start with the Dawn of the Jedi. Right, and that's the code name.
Dawn of the Jedi.
I don't know if it's going to be called Dawn of the Jedi, but that's the code name at the minute. There's a famous character from the High Republic books that is supposedly going to be in it. It's called something Rowo, who's one of the Jedis. One of the Jedi
Right.
during the High Republic time. But I don't know which of these should be involved in. Obviously, she can't be involved in Rey's or Dave Filoni, so I'm assuming she's going to be in Dawn of the Jedi.
Yeah,
Unless she's going to be in one of those as like a recording or
Ghost or
something like that. Yeah. That could be really interesting. I think that could be really interesting.
But we've always talked about how they should kind of move away from the Skywalker saga because there is more to the universe than just that, and they kind of felt fixated on it. I just hope that there isn't some kind of unnecessary connection.
Yeah.
Like the prophecy gets written then, or like something where you just kind of like...
Say something like that, I wouldn't necessarily mind. Say if someone had like a vision or something like that I wouldn't necessarily mind. But
I hope it's not the entire plot point though.
Yeah, if it was something like, oh, there's this guy, he's called Marvin Skywalker, something like that. If unnecessary connections, things like that.
Who started it, but then he dies, and then somehow another guy. Yeah.
But if there was just like a crazy person having a vision of a prophecy about the one who will bring balance, and all of these are sort of going, oh well, it's me and it's me and it's me and it's me, that would be quite interesting, but not like offhanded silly connections like Marvin Skywalker.
Yeah, like I could get behind just like a vision, but you get what I mean. I just hope it's not like stupid connections.
Yeah.
Like it's already a part of the same universe. I don't need to have any more connections.
Yeah.
Just do something, make it look cool.
So I think, I'm sure I remember this. The guy who was the main character in Squid Game.
Okay.
Is going to be in Dawn of the Jedi. It's going to be one of the characters. The body actor for Chewbacca in the most recent films, I think, sure I read this right, is going to be also reprising his role as a Wookiee. Not as Chewbacca, but as a Wookiee.
I'd be surprised if it was Chewbacca.
A Wookiee Jedi. Should be quite cool, and I'm sure that's in again. It's in Dawn of the Jedi. Apart from that, I can't remember who else is in it. I don't know if there's. I'm not going to Google. I can't be bothered. But yeah.
So when we say Dawn of the Jedi, do we just mean like the creation of the religion?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Or like becoming like what we know as the Jedi Order in.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, that they decide to go for something like Dawn of the Jedi for a film. I would have thought that would have suited a series.
Because I mean, we've kind of seen
the limitations of films. That's what we've seen.
Yeah. The only issue with series though is that it can sometimes be a bit dragged out and a bit
low budget.
Yeah, which is considering it's Disney, it shouldn't be an issue. But I mean, in Clone Wars, we saw something. But that whole plot point. What was it? Do you know when there was like the lass that was meant to represent the Jedi and the lad that represented
yeah.
that whole? Do you think that could be in it? I'm sure. I mean, I hope I can't remember what they were called, but I hope people understand what I mean. There's like where Anakin finds out.
There's the son, the daughter, and the father, isn't there?
And the father's kind of keeping them at bay.
Yeah. The son's the dark side, the daughter's the light.
Yeah.
And the father's the sort of natural middle.
But Anakin can keep them under control, and like the father can as well.
Yeah.
And then he kills the light, and he kills like the sister.
The son kills the sister.
Yeah, which is really sad about. And he also shows Anakin his future, doesn't he? He shows him becoming Darth Vader, and he does turn kind of bad, and they kind of forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it all never happened, but I don't know, when I think of like the very because that's what I mean, if it's just the Jedi Order or if it's just the creation of the religion.
I don't know.
If they would even bother exploring that, because that's kind of like a it's not a major storyline in Clone Wars, but it was definitely interesting.
I suppose it does depend, doesn't it? It depends on if it's sort of like an evolution thing where it's like the first species to learn how to use the Force, or if it's actually Force users turning it into an actual.
Yeah, the beginning of maybe like the split of like the Jedi and potentially the Sith and kind of.
Yeah, so is it? Because that might be it. We don't necessarily know that the Sith aren't going to come from it. I know I'm something of a Star Wars expert, but I can't actually remember how the Sith come about.
Just disagreement. Just like, nah, you're a bit dumb.
I'm sure it's just like a group of them. Yeah, something along the lines of they just
disagree with how they're doing things.
Yeah.
It's interesting because if we see like, because I know I hate to say it, and I know you won't like me saying it, but in the sequels, we see like an old where Luke is. It's like an old Jedi temple, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there are like a lot of there are references to like old Jedi temples here and there. So if it'll be like there's kind of like multiple species across the galaxy that are like have their own like version of it, and they all come together and create the Jedi Order, and that's what this is about.
Well, the original Jedi homeworld was Tython.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I know. They only moved to Coruscant because it was the centre of the Republic. I'm sure Tython's the original Jedi homeworld. But even everything that we've just talked about, all those sort of things that could be involved in that film, I just feel like there's a lot. There's a lot of sort of.
For me, it should either be a series or a trilogy. maybe centered around, I don't know, like maybe one character, or like one, I don't know. It depends. It depends what the story's going to be about. We don't even know.
It'll probably, as I imagine, it'll be about the first council of the Jedi Order, like the first 6 or 7 that become
Yeah.
the first council, which will probably no doubt also include the first one of them to turn Sith. Either, maybe not turn Sith, but give plenty of hints that he's going to be the one that turns into the Sith. Because for me, I think the way they've done it recently is that they've seen more, like, the films as sort of chapters, and then the series be actually like the filler in them to help people understand the chapters.
You kind of hone in on a specific character or like a specific event.
So it wouldn't surprise me if they did Dawn of the Jedi and then spawned a really big story from it.
Like they might do like a Sith-based one where they kind of they split off.
Either films or series. I'm not going to say.
But it is. I like the idea. We've talked about it loads about them going back to like the Old Republic.
Back in time, go back in time.
And doing something that's not Skywalker based, because everything that they've done has been a part of that bubble. And I think it's like.
If you want to compete with things like Marvel, you have to start expanding.
It's not even just that, but it's like, funnily enough, some of the most like successful of like the newer stuff has been the stuff that hasn't even involved Jedi, like Rogue One. I mean, there was that bit with Darth Vader at the end, if you could even. I mean, he's not a Jedi technically, but that wasn't so much a lightsaber fight as it was a massacre. Yeah. There's been, like Mandalorian, which has been centered around obviously a Mandalorian. There's been very few. There's been very few Jedi like involved. It's like that's kind of. It shows that they don't have to do.
Doesn't all have to be about Anakin.
Yeah, it doesn't have to just be about I know obviously it's gonna obviously be about the Jedi still, but it's nice to see them exploring more.
Yeah. So the second one is Dave Filoni, and it's gonna, as it says there, it says, we'll focus on the New Republic and close out the interconnected stories told in The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and other Disney Plus series.
I mean, what does that even mean? Okay, so let's think about what Disney Plus series there are first. So obviously, there's Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka.
Yep.
What else has been? There's been Kenobi. Is that going to be included? Even though that was set back in. That was
pre-Rebellion.
Yeah, before A New Hope. Is that going to? I'd be surprised if that was tied in. Be really surprised.
Well, you never know.
Maybe I don't know.
Then there's things you've got to remember as well. There's things like the Bad Batch, Clone Wars, Rebels.
What else? What other Disney Plus series has there been?
I think those are the main ones. The main ones obviously are the Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and Ahsoka, aren't they?
Yeah, I understand those three because they happen closely. Obviously, Ahsoka hasn't come out yet, but we assume they happen kind of
post-Rebellion
together. Yeah. And I guess they really haven't given much information, have they? Like, what kind of story are they? Maybe it's gonna be the end of the Empire, because the Empire's been prevalent in kind of all three.
They did show like a timeline where it's like eras in Star Wars. Like there's the New Jedi Order, which is sequels, First Order, New Republic, Reign of the Empire. I've forgotten what the main one is. The Republic, I suppose. Probably just the Republic. Like the
New Republic.
Prequels. Like the prequels. Then, backwards and backwards and backwards. High Republic, Old Republic, Dawn of the Jedi. I think that was all of them.
Because this is set before the sequels.
Yeah.
Them three, aren't they?
Yeah.
So if it's tying those up, maybe it's, and I hate to say it because I know you will get upset, maybe this is like officially the end of the Empire, or maybe like the Empire turning into the First Order.
Maybe, but I would think that this would be more centered purely around Thrawn, because obviously we know Thrawn's going to be in Ahsoka, And I imagine it's just Ahsoka's going to pose Thrawn as the next big bad.
So maybe it's like Din Djarin as potentially the ruler of Mandalore. We don't know. It hasn't happened yet.
That's interesting as well if we're going to Ahsoka, because I'm sure there was a storyline where Sabine was positioned as the ruler of Mandalore at one point, wasn't she?
Well, didn't Sabine not... Was Sabine not the one that gave Bo-Katan the saber?
Yeah,
but then, obviously, it can't just be given. It has to be won, and that's why Bo-Katan's is, like, superstitial. Like, she doesn't... Like, she had to win it.
Superstitious,
that one, yeah. So, yes, maybe it's, like, Din Djarin is the ruler of Mandalore. Boba Fett is, like... I don't know, he's the ruler of Tatooine.
the boss of Tatooine.
And Ahsoka, like, chasing Thrawn, then, maybe.
The Last Jedi. Oh, no, she's not a Jedi. Never mind.
Oh
my god, did I just say those words?
You did. Yeah. Yeah, and like, yeah, because maybe it'll have flashbacks to like Clone Wars and imagine.
Well, it would be interesting, isn't it, if they're going to do a film
and Rebels,
and it's going to be set after those 3 series, and it's going to be set at, and it's going to end those storylines. Then Luke most certainly has to be in it. If they're going to have someone be a big bad, unless it's not going to have a big bad, Luke's going to have to be in it. Because Luke's not just going to sit back and go, oh yeah, they're all fighting, but I'll just sit here. Actually, according to Star Wars, Luke would just do that.
But not at this point.
Yeah.
Because the sequels haven't happened yet.
Yeah.
But what if they do try and connect it to the sequels?
I hope they don't. I'd like to think there's at least, 20... At the very least, 20 years between this one and the first sequel film. If not 40 years.
What if there's like a pregnant Leia that shows up and we're like, this is the future?
Well, I would say even that I wouldn't necessarily hate that. I wouldn't hate.
But I know, but we know
that's
what happens.
Okay. But like a very cheap, backhanded link would be not very good to me. Like, say there was just a random character who showed signs of Force use, and that would be okay. Who was on the bad guy side, that would be okay to me. But if they started, I went through this whole thing, called a character, called like a certain name, then it gets to the end and someone turns to him and goes, you'll have to change your name. What are you going to change your name to? And he goes, Snoke. That I don't want. I don't need that. Alright? Give me the hint. Show me like the burnt face. Fine.
What if Ian McDiarmid's in it?
Oh, that's true. Who did they go for? Did they go for Ian McDiarmid or Snoke? You see how much of a mess the sequels have made Star Wars?
No, but isn't like Ian, because... But yeah, because...
It was there. It was at Star Wars Celebration.
Because Snoke, like, was... Palpatine was Snoke. Snoke was Palpatine because of storytelling. So...
Don't say storytelling in the same vein as the sequels. It wasn't a thing.
So... Maybe?
Ian McDiarmid, maybe.
I'm not... I like Ian McDiarmid when he's not in the sequels. When he's, Ian McDiarmid being good.
You've gotten very satirical with your hair of the sequels.
Do you know what it is? The more rants I go on, the more I realise... Like, the more you
realise that I was correct.
I think we both didn't like them. It was more of just... I realised just how bad I disliked them.
I've hated all of them from the beginning.
Yeah, but I like Dave Filoni. In Dave Filoni we trust. So yeah, let's just... What if it's just even better and it's just like no more... It's like a rewrite of like... Something happens in it where it's like there can't be the sequels.
Grogu? What's going to happen to Grogu?
What's going to happen to Grogu? Oh my god, no. What's going to happen to Grogu? What if... No, what if something happens to Din Djarin and Grogu has to go with Luke?
We don't see them in... We don't see either of them in the sequels.
That's damn depressing. Let's just...
We don't see Boba Fett in the sequels. We don't see Ahsoka in the sequels.
That's because... I know.
And I will not be happy if Ahsoka just lies down and dies.
She just dusts in.
Yeah, a character like her doesn't deserve that. Just like Princess Leia didn't deserve that. I know obviously they were written into a corner because Carrie Fisher passed away sadly, but Princess Leia deserved a better, more badass death than that.
I'm just... a part of me really wishes that was their way of like disconnecting the sequels to the main story. I know obviously like they're going to be doing something about Rey, which we'll get to in a minute, but they could still have their own, like, that could be its own like thing, just all the way over there.
Yeah, just
go
over there.
For the people who like it still, all of you, like 3 people out there, you can still have that, and we'll have the goodness that is Star Wars.
Yeah.
And people are probably upset about how decent the sequels, but they really just aren't good.
They're not good. Anyway, while we're talking about it, somehow Rey Palpatine returned.
Rey Skywalker, Sean.
Oh, that's right, Rey Skywalker.
Because she's somehow
a Skywalker, yeah.
She.
Again, we want to preface this by saying we don't blame Daisy Ridley, Oscar Isaac, John Boyega, Andy Serkis, Adam Driver, maybe Laura Dern, maybe.
Ian McDiarmid, did you say him?
No, I don't.
We don't blame Ian McDiarmid. No. It's a damn treasure he is.
Or Harrison Ford.
Nope.
Or Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
Though, everyone else. But, yeah, I just... the potential... This feels like, Dawn of the Jedi. It feels like one where someone's had to go in and go, we really want to do the Dawn of the Jedi. We want to show the beginning of the Jedi. Yeah. And Kathleen Kennedy's gone, you know what? Okay, fair enough. Dave Filoni's gone, right, so listen, we've spent all these years doing all these series. Let's cap it off with a massive film.
I don't even feel like it was that. I feel like he just walked in with a script and went, this is happening, and then exited. He flicked his cowboy hat and left.
Then Kathleen Kennedy went, okay, fair enough, yep. But then it feels like with this one, that it's Kathleen Kennedy going, we need to make this film.
Because everyone wants to see it.
Yeah, it's like, no, just let the sequels die. Let them end. And again, this may very well be a good... It might be a good film. They might give Daisy Ridley a chance to actually have some character development.
Yeah, to learn... Yeah.
Yeah, to maybe learn some stuff.
The thing is... And, I feel like we have to... in terms of storytelling, it just was all over the place. Didn't make sense. There was... it felt like there was fan service just for the sake of it. Just to, have the character in, or to, have this reference to this. By the end of it, it just felt like they were just trying to go back on themselves. They didn't know what they were going to do. They brought Ian McDiarmid in for no reason, just because it's Ian McDiarmid, and
they essentially unwrote most of the prequels.
Most of the second movie in particular, and the prequels.
No, yeah. I mean Anakin's story.
Yeah.
Especially in the third film, especially
they didn't even explain why or how Palpatine was back. He kind of was just there, and he's like, "Oh yeah."
It was literally somehow Palpatine returned.
I was Snoke. I also had 2 children, a child that nobody knew about, who had another child who was my granddaughter, who was Rey, but it doesn't matter because she becomes a Skywalker at the end somehow.
Yeah.
And it was just what?
But then Rey and Ben both force heal each other willy-nilly, no problem, easy as that, pish pash posh.
Even though that was literally do you remember
Anakin's
the prequels?
That's what I just said. Yeah. Anakin's entire story in the third film.
Is it possible to learn this power?
Yeah.
He wanted to be able to save Padme, and
they don't even show you them learning it. Doesn't even show you them learning it. And it's
it's meant, the whole it was back, which doesn't make sense because in the time of the prequels, Yoda was no, not Yoda. Palpatine was it's an ancient thing, and it was such a big deal when he brought it up because it was unheard of. Is it truly possible for a Jedi to be able to heal someone with the Force? And then we flash forward all these years to the sequels when somehow Luke, of all characters, is a legend in Rey's eyes, and yet she can just somehow Force heal people. Is that?
Mm-hmm.
Just like that?
Yep.
And just,
But the worst part, and this is what's going to drive people very not happy with this film, is that throughout the entire sequel trilogy, Rey never loses. She never loses a fight. She always wins.
Yeah.
And somehow, that's supposed to be relatable.
She's the most overpowered,
yeah,
apprentice ever. Even Anakin lost, and he was the chosen one. He lost a hand. He lost loads. It's not... I don't...
Anakin lost, what? Once in Attack of the Clones he lost. Well, twice if you count the Petronaki plantation. Then you've got Revenge of the Sith. Ultimately, he loses to Obi-Wan. You know, it's like, and he is supposed to be the most powerful of the Jedi, and it's like, no,
Yeah.
you know, this woman who's barely ever even touched a lightsaber is somehow better than everyone.
It's like an.
The other thing as well with this film is, you know, Rey got really poorly treated as a character in the sequels. Not Daisy
Yeah.
Ridley's fault, writers and Kathleen Kennedy's fault, and directors. But there's a whole bunch of characters that got so poorly treated, and it was like, Finn, by far, is the absolute worst, like, in terms of treatment. You know, he got positioned as a deserter stormtrooper who becomes a Jedi, and he
Which
could have
was
been
so interesting.
cool and original. You're finally going down an original story. No, never mind. Forget it. He's got something that he wants to tell Rey. Doesn't tell her. And that's your lot.
Like Oscar Isaac, like what was he?
Poor Dameron.
Poor Dameron was really cool. Like in The Force Awakens, he had a really cool moment where he was like flying around and he was like, you know, destroying all of the TIE fighters and all this stuff. And it looked really cool, and like he had so much potential to be like kind of like a Han Solo character, kind of like that cool pilot
Like a
that
flyboy.
everyone loves, and it just.
Yeah, there's a lot of characters that got assassinated. Luke got massively assassinated in the sequel trilogy.
I hate so like people still, and they try like the arguments for why they were good. They were like, oh, that's where his story was going.
No, it's not.
It's like
when the guy who plays Luke clearly loves the character, right, is telling you that this isn't what his character would do.
yeah.
Listen.
I felt like, I mean, literally, like the guy that was willing to just die to kind of get through it was Fabi, because he believed that he still had hope and love in his heart. Like he believed that he still had the potential to come back to the light, and then he just tries to kill his nephew for having like a bad thought. Like
The thing is, while a lot of people say about Luke that that's where his story was going anyway, it wasn't where his story was going anyway. But you can do the Hermit Jedi story the right way. Like Yoda is that. That's what Yoda is. If he'd failed at something and then went, well, I've failed, I've got to go into exile. But the way that he fails is the most ridiculously massive backward step for Luke that has ever been written.
Well, like, that's what I mean. Like, if it was just like, oh my god, like, I couldn't. Like, he just didn't want to believe that his nephew could be bad. He just, in the same way, he had too much hope for him. He didn't want to believe that he was bad, even though he had all the signs. Like, if we saw, like, a scene of him being really, like, really aggressive, or, like, other, like, Padawans, and he was just, stuff like that, we would be like, oh, fair enough, because that's what Luke is. He's too trusting. He has so much hope for people, and but then he was willing to kill him, and he didn't even know that he was bad fully. He kind of just knew that Snoke was trying to get to him, but he didn't know that he was was bad. And then you had the fight at the end, and then he just
Rey and Ben kiss.
yeah.
That just feel weird to you.
Yeah,
Because you can see what's going to happen, can't you, in this film where she's rebuilding the Jedi Order. She's going to have flashbacks, she's going to have thoughts, she's probably going to hear voices, she's going to hear, she's going to hear Kylo Ren Ben talking to her, she'll probably hear Leia talking to her, she'll probably hear Luke talking to her, she'll hear all the Jedi talking to her, as they do at the end of Rise of Skywalker. She'll probably hear Palpatine talking to her at some point, she'll poor Dameron and Finn are still around, but Oscar Isaac said he's not interested in being in Star Wars again.
don't blame him.
So how are they going to get around that?
They'll probably just say he's off rebuilding something.
John Boyega feels horrifically treated by Star Wars, so doesn't want to come
I
back.
don't blame him. That like, do you know what it feels, because what they were trying to do, and I get what they were trying to do. They were like, oh, we need a strong female Jedi. That's what we need, because we haven't had that yet in live action.
I'm glad you said live action.
Yeah. Calm down. So we're gonna give you the most overpowered female Jedi in live action you've ever seen, She doesn't even need to train. She's that good. One minute she's saying she doesn't even believe in the Jedi. The next minute she's able to like mind control a stormtrooper or whatever he was.
Yeah, there were stormtroopers.
Just like that. Like after the second try, and I was like,
it's not really relatable,
I'm
is it?
pretty sure. It takes the average Jedi like years to learn those kind of tricks, but yeah, you should just do it like that.
But without getting, I'm glad you said that, because without getting myself in trouble again, that's what Disney does now, is that they create this completely ridiculous, overpowered, completely unrelatable character
Yeah.
who happens to be female and goes, oh yeah, role model for all women. Like, no, because no woman's like that. You want to know the ultimate role model in any Disney film? Mulan, 1999. And I don't know, 2021 one
I'm
can
glad
go
you
and
said
do
999.
one. Because that Mulan, the most recent
Yeah,
Mulan,
progression in like learning and training.
yeah, earning the respect of everyone around her.
Yeah.
And then when she gets told, no, you can't do that, you're a woman, she still doesn't let that stop her. On the threat of death, ultimately, she goes and saves the world and becomes a hero. And becomes a hero. Rey never at any point becomes a hero. She just decides, oh, well, I'm more powerful than everyone now.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what the most recent Mulan did as well. The most recent Mulan and Rey might as well be the same person. Because they literally are exactly the same.
Yeah, there's no progression. There's
No.
no story development. There's no character development.
Mulan doesn't train. She just turns up and she's got magical abilities, which means she can kill everyone and win. Doesn't even matter. There you go.
Yes.
So while it could be interesting, I suppose, depending on how they go about it, that's the one that I'm the least looking forward to. And I'll not be in a rush to see that one in the cinema.
Yeah.
I'll happily go and see Dawn of the Jedi and the Mandalorian one, but the Rey one,
Yeah. I think it's... I feel like the more time that passes since they came out, the more people
stop kicking stuff.
the more people that are coming to realise that the sequels weren't all that good. So it really surprises me that because they've kind of not really done anything even afterwards or anything around that time, have they? They've kind of avoided it. So it's interesting that they've now said they're going with Rey as well. Rey as a character. I thought if they were going to do anything around that time, it would be maybe about Luke and him building his own kind of order pre-sequels. That's kind of what I envisioned they would do first, but they're going after Rey, and I feel like people with Daisy Ridley, because she always got the crap for it, and all she was doing was doing what they told her.
I like Daisy Ridley. She seems like a really nice lady. I don't like Rey. That's the problem. Like, Rey isn't a character that's enjoyable to anyone. And while I might sit there and go, Finn in the first one, Poe Dameron in the first one, were likeable characters. It's got nothing to do with their sexes. I like Finn because it was an interesting story that had never been done before. And I like Poe, frankly, because he was awesome, wasn't he? He was given awesomeness. And people might sit there and go, well, Rey was given awesomeness. So, well, no. There's a big difference between being a good pilot and being the most powerful Jedi that's ever lived.
She started off good, like as like a scavenger that was kind of, she had to like work just to get meals.
Yeah, didn't know who she was.
No, and she was waiting around for these parents that for all she knew was never going to come for her, and she had like a stick that she like fought with, which made sense because she would have to know how to defend herself on that kind of planet. I liked that, but as soon as they got into the Jedi stuff with her, it just felt like they were going... There was no kind of hints that before
there was the bit with the lightsaber, wasn't it? She touched the lightsaber.
That's what I mean, but before that though, there was no kind of hint or anything that she potentially was force sensitive.
No.
It kind of just was sprung on us all of a sudden. Like, she just picked up a lightsaber, she had like this vision, she had people talking to her, and then it was like, oh no, okay, so she's the Jedi, not Finn. And it felt really sudden, and then after that it was just too much.
Especially when there was something that could have been a hint in that first film, where just after they've massacred the little village, the First Order right at the beginning of the film, and Finn's little friend dies, he sort of stops, doesn't he? And he turns, and then Kylo Ren kind of goes,
And he
and
looks
looks
at him,
straight
yeah.
at him, and it's like,
It was almost like he senses.
Does he feel the force in him? And it's
Yeah.
like,
But it's interesting because he was, like you said, they were on Jakku. Would he not be, if Rey was as powerful as she was straight away,
would he not sense her? Yeah.
But he could sense, but it didn't make, it felt like they had decided halfway through the movie that Rey was going to be the one with the force, not Finn.
But there would have been no reason to not have both of them be,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's like, you want to do something cool, they should have done the double turn, in my opinion. They should have done,
She turns to the dark side.
and he turns to the good.
Yeah.
It's like, there you go, and you can do the sort of redemption at the end if you really wanted, and that would have been a better story, I think, for Rey. But of course, you can't have a female as a bad guy
because
nowadays.
it makes sense, because it's like what the whole idea. So like in the prequels with Anakin, they said he's too old to be trained because he has an attachment to his mother and to like people around him. It's going to be more difficult for him to resist the temptations of the dark side because of that. And he was still a child. He was like 10 or something. And then you obviously had Luke, the same issues. They were unsure if he could be trained because of how old he was. Rey, it made sense. We saw that. We had the Luke who was the good example. He had a moment where he could have, but he didn't. He kind of stayed on that path. Then we could have had Rey that mirrored that, who she was older when she got trained, but she ultimately turned to the dark side because of her emotional attachments. And it would have, not only would we have had the first female Jedi in live action, we would have had the first female Sith in live action. So it would have, it just made more sense.
But anyway, let's leave it there. Let's stop ranting.
Well, that's all that. I knew that was going to turn into that. As soon as you said Rey, a movie about Rey, I was like, oh god, another sequel.
I don't have to say that
Rant.
stupid, crappy lightsaber. She's got one of the worst looking lightsabers in
spins
all
it.
of Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah.
Forget the fact that it's yellow. You can almost get away with yellow. But
I love how George Lucas came out and was like, there's only one character I've given a yellow lightsaber to, and it's not Rey.
yeah.
Because it doesn't yellow, they're kind of like, I don't think they're supposed to be like Bounty Hunter-esque, they're not like, kind of they're not falling under any bracket. Am I right in saying that?
I don't know. Can't remember. I used to know what every single lightsaber colour meant, but I don't really. I know generally that the red means that you dominate the force and you force your kyber crystal to bleed. I know green tends to represent a more attunement to the force, while blue tends to represent more sort of combat based. So that's why the likes of Qui-Gon has a green lightsaber. Someone like Obi-Wan, Anakin, even Count Dooku, who was primarily a duelist, had blue lightsabers. Yoda has a green lightsaber. But anyway, let's. She does have the absolute worst design for a lightsaber.
I can't even imagine what the story would be about. Like, what would is it literally just going to be her building up her own Jedi Order? I would much rather, I'm not being funny, I'd much rather see Luke do that. because it's like Luke, we've had like so much of Luke, and like everyone loves Luke.
And everyone's desperate to see Luke redeemed.
Yeah, and I feel like I wouldn't despise it so much, even though I knew it was leading into the sequels if it was Luke. But I feel like people like us that don't like the sequels, that don't like Rey as a character, are not going to be very happy with that choice, because it feels like they're giving her a story that shouldn't be hers.
But we'll see. Let us know what you think down in the comments. Tell us what you think about Star Wars in general. Sequels, prequels, original series, whatever. Like the video, subscribe, ding the bell to be notified when we upload. We try to upload every day. Anything else you want to say?
I hope people don't attack us for not liking the sequels.
No one is ever going to convince me that the sequels were good. You know what? An argument could have been made for the first one if the second and third one had been good. But the second and third one got progressively worse. The second one was horrifically bad. The third one was the worst Star Wars film that's ever been made.
Thank you, Kathleen Kennedy.
Thank you, Fitchin.
I need to know.